The series is won, so what now for the British and Irish Lions? Smash on for 3-0 or give everyone a game? Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be here with you throughout the Lions series, which is nearly over now and beyond. So hit subscribe to follow along. Well, let's put this opening question to bed right away. There is no question whatsoever that the Lions are going to be pushing hard for 3-0. Any kind of sentimentality in selection is not going to be happening with Andy Farrell at the helm, or I suspect many other Lions coaches beforehand. They're there to win. They've said it right from the start of the tour, throughout the tour, after the game on Saturday, and into this week, that they're there to win this test series 3-0. And it's different, it's different compared to previous tours. I've heard people from 97 talking about how they were so thrilled to be 2-0 up and just winning the series was their goal, that, the third test was a long way away and they basically drank and celebrated the entire week of that third test. Not the same with this Lions team. They want to win this 3-0. And I think based on the relative strengths of the teams involved, they kind of have to, really. I think winning the series 2-1 would kind of feel a little bit like par for the course. To win 3-0, I think could still be a really, really great achievement because it so rarely happens. So absolutely, that's what they're going for, 3-0. So let's get into the selections. There's still factors, right? Just because they're going to go 3-0 doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pick exactly the same team this week as last week. Will some players have emptied themselves in the first two tests? And I'm talking physically and emotionally as well, importantly. Will the Lions need a little pickup from somebody who's just got that, the first opportunity to play in a test? Maybe that'll add energy to the side this week. So these are the kind of things that I'm sure all the coaching staff will be taking a temperature of throughout many conversations over the last few days. How are these players feeling? What's their attitude? Are they genuinely really fired up to go and play in that third test? Because everyone's different. And this is where knowing your players is really important, because I'm sure somebody like, just off the top of my head, Finn Russell might seem very relaxed, but deep down that he's really driving and super competitive and wants that 3-0. Any injury concerns? That's the other thing as well. We saw it last week with Tuapoloto not getting selected because he was carrying a tight hamstring. These kind of tiny little fine margins in terms of fitness will also play a factor. So was there anybody from the second test coming into the third that's maybe carrying something? I don't think there was, actually. Nothing obvious anyway. The McCarthy one from the first test was obvious. Like, he limped off. He came off earlier than was expected. I don't think there was any from the second. So what of the injuries? Gary Ringrose is officially out. He is not. That second concussive incident was within the 12 days. So he cannot be selected this weekend. Feel very sorry for him, but it makes the decision for him to pull himself out last week even braver. However, good news for the Lions. McCarthy, Hansen and Tuapoloto all absolutely back and available for selection. So let's get into this. And I'm doing it slightly differently this week in terms of the selection. I'm filling it in from the places that I think are nailed on certainties, and then we'll build the side around that. So let's get into it. These are who I think are absolutely stone cold nailed on. Starting with Hugh Jones at 13. I think with Ringrose out, I can't see the Lions doing something slightly off-piece, like playing Tommy Freeman at 13. I see it very unlikely. Hugh Jones, try scorer in the second test, played well throughout, certainly deserves to keep his spot there. Gibson, Park and Russell, no question. I think also 2, 3 and 4, Sheehan, Furlong and Itoje will absolutely be nailed on to start as well. And by extension there, you've got Kelleher and Stewart on the bench and Mitchell continuing to cover for number 9. Okay, this is where it gets more interesting, I guess. And I think the big question here to start off with is, do we bring big Joe McCarthy back into the side? I think he was pivotal. I think as well as the Lions forwards played, I think we lacked a little bit of physicality and grunt in those opening sort of 40, 50 minutes against the Wallabies. So pick for the first test, I think he will get picked for the third as well to bring in that bulk, that aggression. I thought he played really well in that first test and on tour throughout, to be honest. So then if he is getting picked at number 5, I think that means Ty Burn continues at number 6. I think he's been excellent, hasn't he? He's been one of the players of the series so far. I think he's got the energy. I think he's got the desire. I think he will definitely want to be carrying on. Ollie Chesham, who did absolutely nothing wrong. He had a pretty good game, I thought, last week, but he'll go back to the number 19 jersey in place of James Ryan, who also did really well and certainly did nothing wrong. In fact, I thought he was really pivotal in those closing stages with his physicality. But I think the Lions have got enough physicality around it now, so Chesham's the man there. Alrighty, what should we go next? The next big decision, I guess, is Loosehead. Genge started the first one, Porter started the second. What are we expecting to see? Well, one important factor is that Alan Alatoa is out of the third test for the Wallabies. So in terms of matchups, who they're going to go against, the Lions will certainly be thinking about that as well. Taniela Tupou is back in the Wallabies squad for this game. I suspect we might see him start. He did pretty well for the which game was it? It was the First Nations Pacifica game. He did pretty well in that game. I suspect we might see him start and empty his tank and go full guns, and then whatever, he'll last as long as he lasts. So what do we want? I think this game will again be won in the second half, as opposed to the first test, where I think the Lions knew they had a really good opportunity to catch the Wallabies cold, especially without some of their bigger players. So I think we will have the explosiveness of Genge on the bench again, and Porter, who destroyed Alan Alatoa in one scrum, to start and do all the things he does well. Okay, now into the back row. And again, this is tricky. So Byrne played 280 minutes so far in the test series. Jack Conan also has done that. Tom Curry, a lot less than that. He's been coming off about 50, 55 minutes in both games. But is this still the best combination going into the third test? Is there a potential here to freshen it up and sort of bring some more players through? Because there have been a lot of good performances in the back row on tour so far. But then you look at Conan started all 3 tests against South Africa 4 years ago. Tom Curry, like I said, has been so influential in this test series. So my pick is that they will go exactly the same again. And Conan, let's talk about him for a little bit, because Ty Byrne and Tom Curry have both been getting huge amounts of plaudits. They've been getting the headlines, but Jack Conan has quietly been making huge contributions to this Lions series so far. Put Curry in for the try in the second test, but just lots of other work as well. Brilliant hands, great physicality, both sides of the ball. So I see them going the same again there. And I think then by extension, I think Jack Morgan again, I think there's some energy around him. And I thought he did brilliantly off the bench in the second test. So I think absolutely he'll carry on. And also, if you just think about the combinations, who played in the first test, it was Ben Earl for his carrying. Well, if you've got Genge coming on off the bench to carry, and Will Stewart obviously carried really well off the bench as well, then maybe you want something a bit more sort of breakdown, a bit more defensive minded, and Morgan is certainly that. Okay, I said it got interesting in the back row, but I think actually the outside backs for the Lions, this for me, like I've flip-flopped on this several times already when trying to decide this, and there's loads of good combinations. There's lots of different ways you could go. I think they're going to go, though. I think they're going to go. The first big decision is who plays at 12, because you could stick with Aki, who did well. I would say he did really well attacking side of the ball, but defensively just got caught out a few times. That Suoliti break that led to the Tom Wright try, he was Aki's man, and I think Aki was really scared about getting done on the outside, so showed him the inside, and Suoliti properly took it. So there's that. Tuipulotu is fully fit, and then obviously has played well, and is also got that cohesiveness with Jones that we've spoken about throughout the tour. Or is there a wild card? Is it Owen Farrell? Will he switch things up, almost switch the game plan up as well? No, I don't see that happening. I think he's going to go with Tuipulotu. I think he was probably going to play. I think he would have. Yeah, I know it's very tricky with that centre selection. It changed very quickly last week with Ringrose pulling out. But I think if Ringrose hadn't have been fit early doors, then they would have selected Tuapoloto and Jones last week anyway. Anyway, okay, so with that decision made, because this really affects what happens on the bench as well. What did I do next? I can't even remember which. Let's look at the next slide and see. Oh, we filled it all in. Okay, so with that decided, I think James Lowe and Tommy Freeman, neither of them have been absolutely at their best. They've both had aspects of their game which have been really beneficial, like Lowe's carrying and offloading at times. Tommy Freeman's carrying as well, actually. And at times they've both been okay in the air, but not their dominant best. They're usually very good in the air. So I think that maybe is just down to the laws as much as anything, with every aerial battle being much more contestable nowadays. Hugo Keenan to continue at fullback. You could very easily have picked Blair Kinghorn, who I think was possibly the favourite for the 15 shirt going into the test series. You could have possibly put Kinghorn on the left wing ahead of Lowe, where he finished the game in the second test and looked really, really good. But with Kinghorn on the bench, he covers 10 and 15 and wing, which means you can have Bundyaki on the bench as well. And we know Andy Farrell likes having a 12. He likes having some extra carry on the bench in his backs. So I believe this is where it will go and where it'll end up. But like I say, there's quite a few different combinations that could have happened here. Also, Mac Hansen, who I think was playing himself towards a test spot before getting injured, he could potentially have come in on the right wing, and I would not, if that is what is selected, I would not be complaining about that at all. I'm a huge fan of Hansen, and Freeman hasn't quite been at his best. If Freeman had been playing at the top of his game, then I think that would have been a harsh call, but he hasn't really. Okay, but that's it. That's what I think the side will be for this potential 3-0 test match for the Lions against the Wallabies. So, yeah, but let's talk about the Wallabies, because they are going to be desperate. They are going to be so desperate not to be whitewashed on their home soil. It's a historic moment. 3-0 is a big, big statement. Like I said at the top, it rarely happens. It's the Lions' goal to do that. It's going to be very difficult to match last week's game, I think, in terms of intensity and in terms of like true meaning, as far as I'm concerned. But I think this could be another cracking test match at the weekend. Okay, that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Lots of respect always in my comment section, please. That's what we like. And give the video a thumbs up while you're down there. If you don't mind, it helps other great rugby fans just like you find it. And you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.